Colleagues, if you could make your way to your respective places. Thank you. We will begin the final session. Thank you, colleagues. If you just have a look at the program for the final session, you will see that we are about to begin with a recorded message from the Director General of the European Commission, Director General for Education, Youth, Sports and Culture. So Director General Christophidou has been kind enough to record a message. The European Commission have been great supporters of the International Summit on the teaching profession. They have contributed enormously to work around teacher policy, and we have valued the partnership. So I will ask that the message be played now. Thank you.
Send the word to the International Summit on the teaching profession, as I always felt strongly that teachers' contribution is so precious to all of us. Over the last 2 years, it was teachers who were there to make sure no student was left behind. When those students couldn't come to school, it was teachers again who led in the adaptation of their classrooms to virtual or hybrid environments. And as we see, the largest refugee crisis in Europe since World War II, consequence of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, we once again see teachers all over Europe welcoming young Ukrainians in their hour of need. These moments, COVID-19, lockdowns, welcoming refugees, they echo precisely the themes of this summit: digital learning, inclusion, and of course, the key role of teachers in society. I am proud to say that the EU has your back. We have your back as you support Ukrainian refugees. For example, as we are helping hosting countries recruit teachers from among the refugees, or making sure Erasmus Plus project managers can also use their project to support those who recently found themselves in need. We are also building on a proud legacy of using digital tools and platforms like the School Education Gateway, like e-twinning, bringing classrooms together in the EU, in Ukraine, fostering the foundational values of the EU, building a sense of belonging and solidarity. At the same time, we hear you to support your work and give you the best tools to realize your teaching mission. We're working on delivering the European education area by 2025. The area comes with initiatives like Pathways to School Success, helping member states fight early school leaving and promote basic skills so that you can reach everyone, not just those of privilege. And because you need to develop your skills and careers, we have made use of the Erasmus Plus program to develop our teacher academies. These academies bring together teacher and education stakeholders to tackle challenges like promoting green skills in the classroom, finding the best ways to leverage digital technology to teach and learn, or making sure we can reach even those learners that are harder to reach. The academies will offer opportunities to teachers across Europe, helping you develop competences and opening doors for you to set a path for your career and accomplish it. And speaking of accomplishments, we also launched the European Innovative Teaching Award to make sure your work through Erasmus Plus projects gets the visibility, recognition, and impact it deserves. Because your work has proved once again invaluable, and you deserve all our support. I thank you for inspiring us all, and I wish you a great conference.
Thank you, colleagues. That's a a wonderful message of support from the European Commission, and I now wish to move to that moment in our program where we share the country commitments for the 22-23 period. Thank you very much for the work that has been done pre-lunch and then ensuring that we have each of these commitments before us. At an earlier international summit, I inappropriately referred to this as the Eurovision Song Contest. It is not. It is actually a series of commitments that people are making, so it's not a competition, but there is a delightful European flavour to this as we hear from each of the jurisdictions, including, I might say, Singapore representing the whole of the rest of the world, so and the US, of course. So, the order that we are going to take now is a series of commitments, and I will hit the button to bring up the first, well, I hope, the first of these countries. So I'm going to begin with the Czech Republic, but for some reason my clicker is not operating. Ah, there we go. No, we need to go back a bit. That's it, great, good. So you can see how well I'm doing this on behalf of the Czech Republic. If you don't, just keep this a secret. Let them know I did this really well, yes? So, the Czech Republic could not be with us in the room, but they wanted to make clear their commitments to guarantee the right to education to all, with a special respect to Ukrainian refugees, to deliver integration measures which will be aligned with identified needs and which will be adequately and transparently financially covered, and to take these measures as an opportunity to enhance the whole education system, including infrastructure, equipment, soft skills, and further professional development of all workers in education. So we thank the Czech Republic for those commitments. Let me now move to Denmark and call upon Denmark to report, and thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much. The first slide here is about this year, where we established the program for conversation and development called United About the School, which is our cooperation between the teachers, the students, the principals, parents, municipalities, preschool teachers, teaching assistants, and also the parties behind our primary and secondary school act to develop the primary and lower secondary school together. So the parties behind the Folkeskole, which is primary and secondary school act, has agreed on a future evaluation and assessment system of pupils, and the partners in United About the School have been deeply involved in the negotiations and the implementation of the agreement. So this year, inclusion, more practice-oriented learning and other topics will be discussed in this forum. So this is the first obligation. And the second obligation is then on the upper secondary education, where we in January also established the forum United About the Upper Secondary Education, with the organizations representing also teachers, students, principals, directors, board, labor market parties, and the parties behind the upper secondary education. So the purpose of to develop upper secondary school education together, and the topics such as new grading system and alcohol culture are discussed in this forum. Yeah, so that's the second. And the third, and that's the last one, is that we will hold a joint conference together with the teachers' organizations to follow up on the ISTP 2020. And the purpose is to translate and actualize the relevant international issues from the ISTP this year into a Danish context. And we actually spent the session to talk about the slide on this with the what happens with the Industrial Revolution and what happens now when it comes to social pain among the students. So thank you very much for that perspective. That was the debate during the session. So thank you very much.
Thank you to Denmark. I'm going to move to Estonia.
Thank you. Our commitments. Development of career models of school heads and teachers to ensure the sustainability of the teaching profession. Second is supporting the role of the school in building inclusive communities as a concrete aim, integrate Ukrainian pupils and educators, supporting their mental well-being, all while ensuring their tie to Ukrainian language and culture. And last one, working to raise teachers' salaries faster than the national average and to ensure sustainable funding for higher education. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Estonia. I'm going to move now to Finland.
Thank you. So the first commitment is very much connected to the debates we had around inclusion and equity, making sure that every child and young person is given sufficient support on their path of learning and support being provided as soon as the need is identified. Also putting a greater emphasis on the ways to provide more robust support for learning in early childhood education and care. The second commitment, taking an active role in influencing the working conditions of teachers in early childhood education and care and in schools, ensuring the well-being of our teachers and making sure that they will want to stay in their profession and also have the time and opportunities to give support to learners. And the third commitment, taking the entire educational pathway into account when making decisions and also making decisions drawing on research-based knowledge.
Thank you very much, Finland. Hungary have submitted their commitments and have asked me to report this to you on their behalf. By the end of 2025, Hungary will provide 560,000 notebooks in total for all students from grade 5 to grade 12. In the next academic year, the development of Hungarian in-service teacher training will be implemented, and in 23-24 academic year, school leaving exam and sustainable development subject will be available. So we thank Hungary for those commitments. I'll move to Latvia. Thank you.
Strengthening high-quality training and support to young teachers. Implementation of revised pre-service teacher education programs, including school-based practice as part of the work-based learning program in pedagogy. Provision and state funding of mentors and participation in expert communities for targeted support of young teachers, including best practice, experience exchange, and support for reduction of burnout risks. Support continuous development of teachers' professional competencies. Implementation of measures to strengthen emotional resilience. Clear delineation of rules and responsibilities between schools and parents, introduction of methodological support for competency-based curriculum, support for the development of pedagogical digital competencies. Initial to collective agreement between Education Trade Union and the Ministry to ensure the competitiveness and attractiveness of the teaching profession, development of a new remuneration model and agreement on principles for a balanced workload for teachers.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to Latvia. So I'll now move to Lithuania.
Okay, for Lithuania, we have the commitments to enable teachers to implement innovations, to adapt to new challenges by improving their continuous professional development and introducing a teacher career model, which is not existing so far in the teaching profession. That would be based on competences and performance that allows teachers to freely choose both horizontal and vertical career paths, and this is the demand coming from the young teachers especially. Reduce the bureaucracy, improve cooperation between social partners at all levels from national to institutional, and increase school autonomy to enable school communities to make their own decisions for shaping learning about the new challenges facing humanity. And the third commitment is to improve the school practices in reducing inequality by bringing researchers closer to schools, to work and co-create together with teachers the means and tools necessary to support disadvantaged children.
Thank you, Lithuania. That takes me to, with some help, to Singapore. If you can help me at the help desk and move the slide deck. Oh, good, thank you, great. So I'm going to pass to Singapore.
Thank you. Our top 3 commitments for 2022 are 1, developing active and responsible citizens, 2, strengthening partnerships with parents and community, 3, preparing for the future of teaching. On developing active and responsible citizens, this summit has discussed the importance of sensitizing our students to global issues while empowering them to act. We intend to do this through cultivating personal competencies in our students, namely respectful listening, perspective taking, empathy, and critical thinking. We also know that it's important to empower our students to act, and we aim to do so through increasing their global awareness, collaborative skills, and cross-cultural literacy. We believe this is how we can help foster a sense of agency, hope, and optimism amongst our young for the future. On the second point, on strengthening partnerships with parents and community, we believe in adopting a whole-of-society approach in nurturing and supporting our students, and delegates at this summit have emphasized the importance of ensuring our schools are not just academic environments, but also learning hubs that develop the whole child. To do so, it is critical to partner parents and community. So for parents, we will work with every school to develop a strong partnership with parents, and we will leverage on parent support groups which are present in every school. We will also equip our community of parents with the knowledge and resources to support their children. On working with community partners, we will continue our efforts in Kickstart and Uplift to provide wraparound support to the disadvantaged students and reduce inequalities between students through national initiatives. Overall, the aim is to create an ecosystem that supports our students not just academically, but holistically. Lastly, on preparing for the future of teaching, we know that our teachers are the foundation of our efforts to develop active and responsible citizens, as well as ensuring strong partnerships with parents and the broader community. We will thus empower our teachers to harness the power of technology to amplify teaching effectiveness. We will also equip our teachers with skills and resources to be effective partners and collaborators, and also enable them to be effective guides for our students to navigate the challenges of a complex world. Thank you.
Thank you, Singapore. Nathan, it'd be quite handy to have that. Perhaps the additional communication around each of those 3, if you can send that to us. Yep, that would be good to have. Okay, thank you very much. Let me now take you to Sweden. Thank you.
And this is the vote from Sweden. Denmark, 12 points. Now I will start by giving the education minister's apologies. She, of course, is in a hurry to take care of all the commitments that we agreed upon. And the first, we agreed that we have to continue the joint efforts and dialogue between the government and the teacher unions with a view to attract and retain highly qualified and certified teachers and school leaders. We also agreed to emphasize, and that emphasis should be put on securing the teacher supply in general and equal access to teachers between schools in particular, enabling teachers to focus on core tasks related to teaching and putting emphasis on sustainable teacher well-being and sustainable working environment conditions for both teachers and pupils, with a focus on stress-related illness. And second,
Yes, we said that the lack of teachers is perhaps the biggest obstacle for Sweden. So in order to be better in this, we are also agreeing on offering more accessible paths into the teaching profession, but without compromising on equality. And this is, of course, this is hard for us, but this is what we are going to try to do. And we also want to establish a CPD, a continuous professional development program, for teachers based on research, scientific knowledge, and proven experience. And this means enabling continuous professional development and pathways within the profession
to envision, develop and implement systematic opportunities for both teachers and school leaders, professional development in a lifelong learning perspective, influenced by and drawing upon identified needs, entailing collaborative learning processes, and adaptive to diverse circumstances. And thirdly,
is to work to support schools in their role as crucial actors responding to global challenges, which several have been discussed here during these days. The significant role of schools and teachers in regard to education for sustainable development should be emphasized, in the sense that teachers are giving the prerequisites needed to provide pupils and students with a high quality education within this field. And finally, continue the joint effort to support teachers in this work, including discussing the needs for research and professional development in the field.
That, I have to say, Sweden, that was a wonderful performance.
But can we also add, this is very similar to last year. We have just added a few things, but it is also due that we have an election this autumn, so we don't really know what's going to happen. It's a really severe political climate at the moment.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let me now move to Switzerland, and I will do this on behalf of Switzerland. The first commitment. In order to promote equal opportunities for pupils, we will ensure that all teachers have content-related didactic and methodological competencies for the use of digital tools in the classroom. Second, pupils need to be taught in a good balance between digital and analogue content. This aspect will be taken into account in the equipment of schools and the training of teachers. And thirdly, an inclusive society needs an inclusive school that is not only a school for all children, but also offers jobs for people with disabilities. This is what we will work for. So thank you, Switzerland, for that contribution. Let me move to the UK, and I'll begin with England.
Thank you. We've written rather a lot more here, perhaps, than other countries, but I think underpinning all of our commitments would have been the commitments we made last year on continuing professional development and the crucial role of that. I talked a little bit about the Oak National Academy and the digital section, and what we've agreed here is to work together through the teaching unions and teachers more widely to strengthen the understanding of best practice in the development of digital resources. With regard to targeting support and making our system more inclusive, I've talked about the system of supporting disadvantage and making sure that we have not just recruitment but retention incentives in some of the most disadvantaged areas of the country. And we've also agreed to prioritise broader programmes to areas of high disadvantage. And then with regard to the huge challenge of sustainability and climate change, you'll see a number of commitments there, but I think crucially celebrating the agency of both teachers and students in that process will be an important part of our commitment going forward.
Superb, thank you. Can I move to UK, Scotland? Thank you.
Thank you. And our three commitments really speak to our ongoing empowerment of teachers, which I think has been a topic that we have discussed over the last few days. Work started pre-COVID, but obviously due to the pandemic, things went into abeyance, and that's now recommenced at pace. And we'll continue our good partnership with trade union colleagues and their members, which is key to improving both the relationships with teachers, but also retention and recruitment, and also key to maintaining and improving the education for all of Scotland's children and young people.
Thank you, Scotland. Then I'll move to the United States.
Thank you. There we go. Good. I'm going to just read the preamble part of it, the beginning statement. The commitments are what we've committed to previously, but we've added this to underscore the great dialogue that we've had over the last couple of days. So it's in our commitment to democracy and sustainability and participating in diverse and interdependent world that we make the following commitments.
And the first one is building and sustaining structures and systems that promote and enhance intentional collaboration at all levels of education and across relevant agencies to foster student success. As an aside, I will mention that these three bullets are really the same ones that we had last year, but it helped us focus by saying, why are these important? And we've been working since the last summit, and NEA, AFT, administrators, local, state, and national have already been developing a intentional collaborative. What we found out is that schools that we'd been working with who had this structure in place did much better in the crisis of COVID. They made decisions in the best interest of students very quickly because they were inclusive, they were trusted. This is not only powerful, it's also very practical.
The second, the other two hows are promoting and supporting schools as hubs of the community with inclusive, safe, and welcoming environments in which all students, all families, and educators thrive, collaborate, create, and excel. And the third is on the teachers and school-related personnel, improving systems and supports that value and elevate educators as respected professionals, support, recruit, retain, and diversify our teaching profession.
Wonderful, thank you all. We come therefore to the final commitments from our host, Spain.
Thank you, Chair. First is favor the improvement of teacher training in order to develop the students' digital competence. This is underlined. It is not only about the use of digital technologies, but also a reflection on their ethical and responsible usage, taking into account how they can evolve. Second, move forward in the equity of the system, concentrating especially, I would say, on educational attention to children in the early years, which is one of our main worries at this moment, particularly those who come from vulnerable backgrounds and whose insertion improves with this support. And third, reinforce the role of teachers so that the school has that transforming and supportive character that allows us to grow as a society committed to social justice, inclusion, solidarity, and sustainability as core issues. Thank you.
Well, colleagues, thank you. It really is a remarkable set of commitments, and in the spirit of ensuring that we keep each other informed on progress, you will receive the progress reports that were submitted prior to this summit, and then obviously next year at the appropriate time we'll ask you to share your progress on these commitments in the lead into the 23 summit. And I think the spirit of this we've made clear from the start. This is not an accountability exercise. This is if you like, country by country commitment, and then a collective responsibility that we will share the work. So I think in that spirit, the summit has been a wonderful catalyst and stimulus for the actions of the kind that you see embodied in the commitments. So again, our collective thanks. Colleagues, we've got a very special session coming up with our Ukrainian colleagues, and we can either, Carlos and I'll do this openly, we can either begin immediately if you are ready for the technical link, or I can use the next 5 or 10 minutes for another part of the agenda. So can you let me know what would you prefer?
No.
Well, then we'll make the link now. That is wonderful. Thank you very much. When you make the link and I see that link established, I'll do the introduction. Oh, fantastic. Good. So, colleagues, this is a very special moment for us. I want you to know that we are being joined by the First Deputy Minister of Education and Science of the Ukraine and the International Secretary of the Trade Union of Education and Science Workers of Ukraine. Let me just make one point clear before I ask the Minister to speak to us. This was an invitation sent on our behalf by our host, Spain, OECD and EI. And I just wanted to read this to you so you understand the context. It was a communication with the Minister to indicate that each year we come together for a very special summit on the teaching profession. This year, we have all been acutely aware of the challenges that have been facing the Ukraine as a result of the Russian aggression, but also we've been acutely aware, and this has been made clear over the last 2 days, Minister and Secretary, it's been made absolutely clear that the leadership and the commitment of Ukrainian teachers to build a better future through education has been foremost in our minds. We'd be delighted, and so therefore we are delighted, that you could join us at this time, and so to share in this link your experience, the vision and the ways in which the international community can support you, and you will know that you have been on our minds throughout the whole of this gathering, before and will continue to be. So, Minister, I call upon you now to share some thoughts. Thank you once again with the Secretary for joining us. Over to you.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, dear friends. Firstly, let me thank you for unprecedented support provided for Ukraine's education system. Every effort is valuable for us. Dear friends, I'm grateful for your invitation and this opportunity to have this short intervention at the Summit of the Teaching Profession. It is an honor for me to be here and to speak about Ukrainian education under aggression. As you know, Ukrainian education system is severely affected by aggressors' atrocities. Russian troops continue killing civilians. They bombing our cities and towns. As of today, more than 1,600 educational institutions have been damaged from bombing and shelling. More than 120 of them are destroyed. However, today I would like to assure you on Ukraine's strong commitments in supporting continuity of teaching and learning. Ukraine pursues comprehensive policies to ensure access to education, to create safe conditions for our students and teachers, to continue systemic reforms at all levels of education. Starting from mid-March, the educational process has resumed gradually, as well as the coverage of children with learning. At the moment, the educational process takes place in remote and blended mode, as security for students and teachers is our key priority. As of today, more than 3.7 million of schools students has resumed their studies. The majority of higher education institutions are open. Preschool institutions resume their work. And there is no doubt that is mainly due to the efforts of our teachers. As many students and teachers have left their homes, we try to involve them to teaching and learning at places of their temporary residence. Pupils and students can study both in educational institutions in regions of Ukraine with better security situation, or continue learning online at their usual educational institutions, if it's possible. We also involve temporarily displaced educators to teach. Ukraine continues to pay salaries to teachers regardless if they continue teaching or not. If they are displaced, stay in the most affected cities and regions. Also, we have challenges in providing regular payments, in particular at temporarily occupied areas. Unfortunately, not all communities are able to organize pay and salaries. And at the moment, the mechanism to address this issue is being developed jointly by the Ministry of Education and Science, the Ministry of Finance, and the Treasury. We have also agreed with few international partners like UNICEF and the World Bank to support our efforts in ensuring stable revenue to school teachers. COVID-19 pandemic has facilitated digital technology integration in education. Ukrainian teachers have been working with distance learning technologies for 2 years. Thus, it's usual process for them. Vocational education and training and higher education institutions also have experience and infrastructure to provide distance learning. But for VET sector, it is less effective tool because of significant practical component in the educational programs. The important problem is lack of digital devices, because a lot of students and teachers were forced to leave their homes without belongings and documents. So, significant number of teachers from the active combat zone, internally displaced teachers and children do not have the technical possibility to continue teaching and learning. To solve this issue, we are actively working with our partners and business. We are currently conducting an all-Ukrainian survey aiming to assess educational needs of communities. The results to be released next week. But according to our tentative assessment, it is critical to provide for more than 50,000 laptops to our pedagogical staff from all types of educational institutions. Another issue we are facing is the threat of mental health of children and adults due to the war. I suppose this problem will exist among us for a long time. Forced suspension of educational process, constant threat to life, and security due to aggressive rocket and bomb strikes have a negative impact on the health of our children. So it is important to train every teacher to provide psychological support and care to their students. And we need your support here. One more challenge is to ensure sustainability of a grand-scale new Ukrainian school reform, which is being launched in the secondary schools this year. It is critical to provide school students starting grade 5 with a new Ukrainian school and school teachers with the next textbooks, which the content corresponds to the new state standards of basic secondary education and facilitates development of the key competence for education seekers. It is also important to train teachers to work in line with the new state standard and to use modern teaching techniques. But due to the sequester of the state budget, because of the military aggression of Russian Federation, the funds provided for publishing of textbooks and for teacher professional development were transferred to the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. In this regard, we would be very grateful for efficient initiatives from international community to tackle this issue. Summing up, I would like to reiterate our gratitude for impressive policy steps being taken by you and your countries to ensure support and solidarity with Ukrainian education. Slava Ukraini!
Minister, just before we pass to the Secretary, can we indicate to you that we have an international community of 14 countries and multiple international agencies in this room, and you are assured of the commitment of support. Let it also be said that this is an open session. We will communicate your message loud and clear, across our respective geographies of the wider international community. Can I now call upon the Secretary of the Trade Union to address us as well? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Colleagues, I know that in your absence, International Secretary of the Trade Union of Education and Science Workers of Ukraine, we welcomed you. We have just heard a message from our First Deputy Minister of Education and Science. Can we welcome you and thank you very much for joining us? We are looking forward to your message. So we invite you to speak to us at this point, but know that you have the support of all colleagues in this room. Thank you.
Is the sound is okay?
It is, yes.
Yeah. Dear colleagues, distinguished guests, it's an honor to speak to you today. It is indeed a privilege to represent and speak on behalf of talents of our trade union members, incredible Ukrainian educators. Incredible, because these days our teachers demonstrate resistance and readiness to work, to study, and to unite our nation everywhere in terrible conditions. We are talking about digitalization, and here it is. Our teachers are giving lectures and lessons by phone, being even in the forefront of the war. A lot of our children are having classes staying in the basements or metro stations, and that is the reality of today's education in Ukraine. Ukraine has been resisting Russia's brutal aggression for almost 80 days. People's lives are constantly in danger. The number of civilian deaths is growing, including children and the elderly people. According to official data, for more than 2 months of war, 642 children have become direct victims as a result of Russia's armed aggression. In particular, 226 children were killed and more than 416 were injured. These figures are not final, as work is underway in the areas of active hostilities in the temporarily occupied and liberated territories. It is genocide, destruction of the nation. This is destruction of the people, all because of Ukraine's unwillingness to be subject to Russian policy. It's hard to talk about quality education in times of war, but we are talking about education as an integral component that has to be stable anytime. Sustainability gives people hope. Peace and stability are crucial for Ukrainians today. At the same time, financial confidence of citizens in wartime is key for rapid economic recovery. What Ukrainian educators need now is stable financial backing. It means sustainable receiving of their salary. Approximately 90% of our teachers who had to leave their homes and to flee to safer regions due to the Russian attack are staying in Ukraine and continue to teach remotely. During the last few weeks, there has been an increase in the number of women and children crossing the border and coming back to Ukrainian territory. It is reported that more than 1.6 million people have already returned to the country. According to surveys, 90% of Ukrainians are planning to return. But of course, it depends on the military situation in our country. The lives of those people who still have been staying in other countries, waiting for war to end soon, continue. According to estimates, half of people that left Ukraine are children of school age. They need to continue education, their native education, to which they've got used to. Graduates have to be provided opportunities to complete school and continue their education. Today, it is important to discuss the establishment of a single mechanism, roadmap, for the registration of Ukrainian pupils and students, which will help to analyze the situation regarding the number of people who were forced to flee abroad. It could create conditions for Ukrainian children to get Ukrainian education. Besides, it is needed to set up centers that will facilitate the entry of school graduates who are abroad now to Ukrainian higher education institutions. Since the beginning of the Russian invasion to Ukraine, the Trade Union of Education and Science Workers of Ukraine, as many other trade unions in our country, has been receiving a lot of requests from our members to get any assistance. Some of them have lost their relatives. Some of them lost their homes. People are fleeing from bloody atrocities with only one bag in their hands and a little money with them. And all these people need support. And the trade union and other trade unions and all Ukrainians are doing their best by providing financial and humanitarian aid in order to help all these people and also our members. We all know that lack of education makes people easy to be controlled and easy to be ordered. This war is made not by one person, but by those who are easy to be controlled and manipulated. But these people lack the main thing, addiction to freedom that Ukrainians have. We believe not only in victory, but also in prosecution and punishment of everyone who killed and tortured Ukrainians. We believe that education has to be at the front lines to avoid any wars in the future. I am sincerely grateful to all colleagues and friends for solidarity with Ukraine, for your support, and for the opportunity to speak here today. Thank you.
Please stay with us for a moment. I would like to pass to David Edwards, General Secretary of EI, just to make some comments that I know will be on behalf of all of us. David, to you.
Thanks, Tony. Hi, Katerina. There's probably not a dry eye in this room, so that's one of the things I can convey to you. But Tony spoke with you and the Deputy Minister about the resolve of everyone around this table to do everything we can to support and help the continuation of education, but also, because this is the ISTP, to support the teachers of Ukraine at this difficult moment. Whether that's through solidarity funds and direct support. But the people around this table also represent governments and ministries. They have resources and knowledge and networks that they can bring to bear. And last week, Olga was actually with us in Warsaw. It's the Vice President of the Union, and Andreas was there, and we brought together a number of jurisdictions to think about what we could do to support you, your members, and the children and the students of Ukraine. And I think that's an unfinished conversation, quite frankly, and I think there's a lot that this community could do, and I say community because we are a community, to continue to support you and support the education system and the continuation of the education system in Ukraine. And we just wish you all the best. We're sending you our love and solidarity. Thank you very much for joining us.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you once again for joining us. You know you have our admiration, affection, support, and we will be with you as we have been over the last couple of days at all moments. Our thoughts and our prayers have been with you. I know what you need is our support, and you have it. Thank you once again. We might just want to take a moment. We'll reconvene in just a couple of minutes. Thank you. Can I just acknowledge that the fact that we've had the opportunity to prepare ourselves for that very powerful session is certainly because of the initiative that I indicated that came from our co-host, but this was also a desire on the part of many of the jurisdictions around this table who explicitly asked that we find a way of being able to connect during this summit and to express our total support. So it's a collective thank you to the initiatives that brought us that session, and it meant that we had that in mind from the moment that we gathered, and I think all of us would appreciate that. It gave a depth of meaning and urgency to our summit this year. So that's an ongoing commitment, and the action that we've shared this afternoon, both in respect of the Ukraine, but in respect of our own jurisdictions and our collective commitment to the international community, I think is really powerfully communicated to all of us. So we come to a moment, and thank you, David, very much in the way in which you spoke on our behalf, and I know that the First Deputy Minister will also be aware of our response. So we come to a moment where we are asking our co-hosts if they might make a reflection on all that we have discussed. And in doing so, we are thinking about not only this amazing convening, sir, and we'll be thanking you on several occasions for bringing us together, the union between both the profession and the government that has brought us here, but we'll also be wanting to anticipate our convenings for the next 2 years. So before we conclude proceedings, I'm going to call upon the hosts of the 2023 and 2024 summits who have agreed to speak to us and indicate their desire to convene us over the next 2 years. But first, I think, Secretary of State, it would be appropriate to call on you as one of our 3 co-hosts, but the most important in terms of convening us in this year, in Valencia, in Spain. So, sir, to you.
Thank you, Anthony, very much. Well, we are coming to the end of this international summit, and of course, they have been intense days. But we are very, very happy, very satisfied, and I hope you will go home as satisfied as we are here. In fact, we have attended, myself, I have attended a number of international meetings all over the world, and sometimes they give the occasion to present what you are doing and listen to others and so on, but it's not that frequent to have the possibility of having this interchange, this discussion, this what I saw, this knowledge construction, building, and how we build, in fact, approaches, perspectives, and so on, and we share them. And we can see if we are more or less in a convergent way or not, and that makes very, very easy for, at least for ministries, to think about what we are doing and what the others are trying to do, and how that can be valued from your point of view, and so on. So personally, I have been very pleased to have the opportunity to share with you all the changes we are undertaking in Spain, and to hear voices and points that, well, probably you don't think are directly addressed to us, but we receive that in that way, because we connect your reflections on your systems as reflections on what we are trying to do in our system. No? So these possibilities to exchange views and so on, I think that we have that in international occasions. Some of you belonging to European Union, to the European Union, we have met by video conference several times during these last years. But this summit offers us a privileged situation, which is in fact having the possibility of sharing that and well, discussing that with teacher unions. I think this is a very significant approach, which for us is highly valuable. Well, you know that we have a dialogue with teacher unions. Sometimes we agree more, sometimes less, but that's life, so things are that way. But we continue to have this dialogue. But having that at an international scene is not that frequent. Well, at least it was our view, no? So it is that why we are very, very happy and very grateful to have been invited some years ago to participate in these summits, because for us it is a real process of learning on policy making and on running systems and so on. I think that it is clear that education is not just a matter of teachers and schools, and we have said that along these days many times, and that's why education systems only can be changed, transformed, if we work together in partnership as a team with others, with other countries, with other organizations, with other actors. You know, it is about building what we call learning hubs, something like that, in which we all need to be involved. You know? Governments, families, teachers. And to empower students is our goal, in fact, and to give them the tools, the authority, and independence to improve their lives. And for doing so, we have to work together, definitely. So let me thank you all for the reflection each of you have shared these days. It is gratifying, I have to say, to hear from others the importance of leaving no one behind, which is something we have repeated so much these days, or that education cannot be dissociated from inclusion and equity, which for us is a crucial policy objective. You know? The pandemic has shown us many things, and I think for each of us it is a reality. No? We have learned that technology will not replace teachers, will help them, but will not replace teachers, that digitalization is a means of acquiring skills and developing competences, and that education, in fact, is a social act. And so that's why we are many actors working in that. And even while we were still trying to come to terms to all of this, well, this dramatic situation in Ukraine has been very much on our minds in this couple of days, and it seems that we will probably have to live with uncertainty and test our resilience in the quite some time more than now. So after having listened to you, it has been good to see that we are going in the same trends. Let me say, we are at the same page at this moment. Each one has their own reality, their own challenges, but in fact there are a lot of common challenges, and it is good to realize that and good to learn from others who are probably doing quicker or better than we do. So thanks for your contributions. And well, I will end by now. I would like to reiterate my thanks to the government of Valencia and to all the team of the Regional Ministry of Education of Valencia. Many of the people attending you these days work for them. Many of the people helping you to go to some place or helping you in the elevators and so on are teacher trainers working here. And they have been helping us to give this warm support to the meeting. It was 2 years of constant preparation work with OECD and Education International. Usually it doesn't take so long time, but on this occasion it has been much more difficult, based on the heritage we received from Finland some 3 years ago. I will also thank the Spanish ministry team, which was all days behind that, and not only in these days, but before that. I would like to thank, well, probably I shouldn't because they are part of us in this delegation, but I want to thank the Spanish teacher unions, because we have made a great work together, and we will continue to do. And finally, to the interpreters and all the rest of the staff supporting us. Thanks to all, and have a good and safe trip back home. And, well, I hope we will see you next year in somewhere, we will know. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Leandro, thank you. Wonderful moment of celebration, and please pass on to the Minister our deep appreciation. But to the collective team, our enormous thanks. I'm going to remind Andreas and David that in final comments we are speaking to the world, open session. We have many observers who have been part of our dialogue, if not in the room, but I think feeling that they have been part of the summit, and certainly over lunches and last night's remarkable dinner. We've had a chance to all come together as the wider community that has been experiencing the most remarkable, I think, honour of being here together at this moment in time. So Thank you again. You've heard the appreciation. Final presentations. No pressure, Andreas or David, but we're going to pass to each of you as we have made our custom before we talk about the immediate future. So, Andreas, to you.
Thank you so much, Tony. And like Alejandro, I must say I'm really, really happy how this ISTP came out. I think we've seen once more how powerful the ISTP, bringing governments and unions together, is really as a platform to move the agenda forward. Yesterday, Tony, you reminded us how the nature of collaboration between governments and teacher unions has advanced. We are now talking about schools as learning hubs. We are now talking about investing in a diverse generation of innovative educators. We are talking about learner agency, giving learners greater ownership over what they learn and how they learn and where they learn and when they learn. We're talking about intentional collaboration and leadership for uncertainty. And it is also really, I think, very encouraging how much more concrete and tangible the commitments have become over the years that we are really seeing. And I think also, what brings us together is a clear understanding that if we go that alone as, institutional players, even as countries, we will not do justice to the challenges that face our societies. So in drawing conclusions, let me begin with the third session, because I think our discussion on sustainability really framed the purpose of education, and I think then also the other two sessions. Now, we are not just seeing that growing disconnect between the infinite growth imperative and the very finite resources of our planet. We are seeing a growing disconnect between the financial economy and the real economy, between the wealthy and the poor, between our idea of a gross domestic product and the well-being of people, between what is technologically possible and the social needs of people, and perhaps also between governance and the perceived voicelessness of people. And I think Robin reminded us that education was now part of COP, and I think that's a great achievement, but we should also acknowledge that it is still, at COP26, education was still more like a sideshow. I think the way we discuss this here as the foundation for sustainable is not yet, I think, visible in the big picture, and I think we have to work on this. Perhaps more importantly, sustainable is not just the future of our natural environment. I think Andriy Vitrenko from Ukraine just gave us a very powerful reminder that sustainability is something that we need to stand up for our societies, for our values, for our democracies. And Andriy gave us some very practical things that the country needs from us at this very moment. And actually every week the ministry published this list. And I think leaving aside what we can do to help the country win the war, I think what we can certainly do is to ensure that every child in Ukraine has the learning resources that they need, that every refugee child is taken care of. In this room, we have all the means, we have all the resources to make that happen, and history is going to judge us on that. I think Lily spoke about the fragility of our democracies. Actually, I liked also the contrast there with Václav, who actually said that, yeah, fragility is actually the very nature of that democracy. That is why we should treasure it, because it requires that constant struggle between different perspectives, viewpoints, and but again, that's what this is about. And again, I highlight here our PISA assessment of global competences. It actually shows that there is a significant share of young people who do not have that open world view, that appreciation of different ways of thinking, that openness to other cultures, that cognitive, social, emotional resilience, that hope. Yes, the majority of 15-year-olds was hopeful by that assessment, but there is a significant share of young people who feel a loss in this environment. This is something that I think we'll need to do this. And I am also saying this because society, the foundations for this, they do not come natural to us. We're all born with the kind of bonding social capital that makes it easy for us to talk with people who think like us, who work like us, who look like us, and actually to create that bridging social capital that holds our societies together. That is what requires really, really clear effort. You know, I actually like very much, as Su-Ling Sun put it, you know, the culture to promote respectful conversation and harmony, to build common objectives while respecting individual differences. And that is what actually requires hard work, but that is what education is about. The other things come easy. Digitalization has created amazing opportunities, not just for education, but it has also contributed to this post-truth world that has, you know, made reality fungible. Now, the virality of information is more powerful than quality in the distribution of information, where truth and fact are losing their currency. And we have those algorithms that intentionally sort us into these echo chambers that, you know, amplify our views and insulate us from divergent perspectives. That are the ones that polarize our societies. And what I mean really is that schools need to become so much better at helping students to learn to be autonomous in their thinking, but also to develop an identity that is aware of the pluralism of modern living. And I think that was brought across by many of you in very powerful ways. And at work, at home, and in our communities, we all need a much better understanding of how other people live in different cultures, in different traditions, how other people think, whether it is, as you know, as scientists or as artists. Success in education really is about building that curiosity, opening the minds of people, building that compassion, opening the hearts of people, building that courage, being able to mobilize our cognitive, social, and emotional resources. And surely those are going to be the best weapons against the biggest threats of our times. No? Ignorance, the closed mind. No? Hate, the closed heart, and fear, the enemy of agency. We all talked about the importance for education to build the foundations for hope, for a positive kind of future. And of course, you know, and people who do not feel that floor under their feet are going to be the ones who build walls around them, as we see as well in our world. And sustainability, of course, builds on inclusion. That was the second theme. And I really like the framing of our Valencian host, Simo Piekfera, when he spoke of the two doors that education can open for us. That picture really stuck with me. The first door, you know, you need an entrance ticket, you need access to education. The most obvious thing. But and actually, I must say, we have some great champions around this table. I think some education systems have really moved the needle in providing more equitable access, have begun to disconnect the social background from the learning opportunities. I really think that we should be very hopeful on this, but the second door that Simo talked about is the one that is much, much harder to open. And that is the door, you know, to build the foundations of society, for civic engagement. That education is not just its instrumental value, getting people ready for jobs, but building the foundations for society. And I do think, you know, we have not yet, you know, advanced that far. But I think this second door is one I think we started to discuss in the item on inclusion. And I think that also made this summit really special and different from previous ones, where we largely focused on the first door. And I want to also highlight here, actually, you know, we don't see much of a relationship between the level of resources invested in education and those outcomes. It's really about the alignment of resources with needs. Now, how creative we become in reconfiguring the space, the people, the time, the relationship, the technology around the needs of people. I think Cindy made that point also very well. And on the topic of digitalization, I want to stress once more a point I made. You know, let's make education a leader rather than a laggard. Now, let's not, you know, look at the technology company who are becoming giants. Let's make education the giant that actually defines the terms. You know, what is the ethical use of artificial in education? How do we use technology to empower learners, empower teachers, rather than disempower them? You have all the tools. Now, there's no space in our societies and our education systems where actually society has so much ownership of how we design it, how we create it. So I really think this is something that we should do. I also like the comment from Lena from Sweden. It is really the children and youth who are at the frontier. And it is essential for young people to be the co-creators of those solutions. And they are really the ones who for whom this future is about. Yes, there are challenges, and I don't forget the comment from Denmark. Now we need to reconcile, personal rights and privacy with the value of big data and analytics in the field of education. But I would like to say again, if we cannot do this in education, where in our societies do we expect this to happen? The day, students close the door and go out, they are confronted with all of the tools. If we cannot create that ecosystem in the space actually where society builds the foundation, I think we'll not see this happening anywhere else. So let's make education a real leader in this. And I think that includes, of course, training for ethics and also. And I also thought here some really interesting solutions. I think both Finland and Singapore are talking about, becoming better at creating open source platforms to curate the great ideas, the best practices of teachers. Now, we have millions of teachers today who are very creative, very innovative designers of learning environments. We just need to curate and make sure that their expertise, that we are better at finding, scaling, and spreading good practice. Now, I think the teacher training for creation of online content in the Singapore Learning Circle, I think you call it, I think if we become better to curate and harness the ideas, if we scale and spread good practice, if we make teachers, as someone said, designers, producers, and presenters of ideas and content, I think we will see a different world. Of course, all of those things are easy to say, hard to do, and that's really what the summit is about. And I think, Mary made that point. We need to ask ourselves, seriously and dispassionately, to what extent, our narrative is mirrored in the real world. And I think we need to do that on the basis of real data and evidence, not to transform education at scale. We don't just need, a radical vision of what is needed. We need some really smart strategies to make change in education happen. As Cindy made the point, we need science to replicate what we know from examples of the field. And I like to see this in Finland in its commitment. Let's build a better kind of science-based understanding of what works. And maybe we should give that greater weight in continued work on the ISTP. Now, it's always easy to establish long lists of what needs to be done, but the reality is countries face very tough choices, when you determine your educational future, you always need to weigh the potential benefit of change against, not just the economic, but also the political cost of change. They're very, very real. Now, do you do what is most technically feasible, or what is most politically or socially feasible, or what can be implemented quickly, or what can be sustained over a sufficient horizon of time? I think also a good point in the Finnish commitments. Now that actually, it's not about another pilot. It is about, sustainable investments. And your answers to those questions are going to make a huge difference. And even, where you find good answers, what is also clear is that the road of educational reform is littered with many good ideas that were poorly implemented. We need to better understand, what are the barriers and blocks, the asymmetries between the costs and benefits of reform. Now, everybody likes reform except when it affects their own children. Education is a very conservative social enterprise. This is the reality we need to deal with, and I think that's something. But more importantly, the laws, the regulations, the structures and institutions on which we tend to focus are just a small visible tip of the iceberg. Now, the reason why it is so hard to change things is, the 90% that are under the waterline, and that is about the interests, the fears, the ambitions of people involved in the system. And again, I think this is where the ISTP can make such an important difference. This is where the collisions occur. You do not see that part because it's so hard to capture, but I think the ISTP can help us actually to make those issues better visible and to tackle them. Now, we have learned over a decade of ISTPs that public policy is rarely successful unless it is good at building an understanding and collective ownership for change. Now, unless you focus resources, you build capacity and you create the right climate for policy with accountability, measures designed to encourage innovation and development, rather than just compliance. And I think, again, the ISTP is the right way forward. So let me just conclude also expressing my thanks to our Spanish hosts for putting this event together. It always, takes one country to go the extra mile for all of us to have this opportunity. And this isn't just about, the logistics and exceptional hospitality that we experience here, but it's also an incredible preparation that goes into the ISTPs. Over the last years, people like Blanca, Carlos, Julio, they have hosted countless web conferences, phone calls, getting everybody on board every time of the day to put all of this together. And you had someone like Jorge and his team here who made all of the logistics work in this wonderful way. And my special gratitude really to you, Alejandro. I must say, I really don't know anyone who has a stronger and more genuine commitment to international collaboration. The time you have invested to get people together, to moderate things over so many years is just, absolutely remarkable. In so many different platforms, government, non-government organizations everywhere. And I want to also thank you for your friendship. I know, last night over dinner, we asked ourselves, did we start working together at the end of the 80s or the beginning of the 90s? I don't think we came up with a clear answer, but what I know, it was well before many of you here around were born. Thank you very much.
Andreas, thank you. And in thanking you and in thanking OECD, we are expressing our gratitude and our admiration and appreciation for the leadership that you provide and continue to provide to obviously the summit, but to the wider education agenda globally. It's remarkable leadership, and there are moments where we just want to stop long enough to acknowledge it, Andreas, and to know that with Yuri, Cassandra, Rebecca, there's a fantastic team of OECD colleagues wider than that, that bring a remarkable knowledge base to bear. But then the analysis and the capacity to think about the way in which we can move this agenda is truly remarkable. So I'll just take a moment to actually acknowledge Andreas. Thank you. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tony. I'm going to flip the script a little bit and do my thank yous at the beginning. I'd also like to join with Andreas and Tony in thanking our Spanish hosts. I don't have the history with you, Alejandro, but we have a bit of a history, and it's always been a very constructive one. I think the team did a fantastic job. I saw them celebrating last night after the dinner in a way a team should celebrate a victory like this. So it was fabulous to see them hanging from the goalposts. That's great. I want to also sort of say that, I think that, and I've been thinking about this, Susan and I have talked about this, I think these 2 years of tireless work that you've put together has created the conditions, and it's very important to create conditions. For a trade unionist, we like good conditions, but the conditions for one of the most forward-looking and substantive summits we've ever had. So I also want to thank OECD, Andreas, the team, for your intentionally collaborative partnership in organizing and informing these discussions. And I think Tony, after 12, I can't believe it's 12, can't be that old. Tony has kept us focused and conversations flowing as really only he can. And I'd like to thank personally, from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of all of us, EI's lead on the summits, which is John Banks, for an interminable amount of work and effort over countless years. So, never let it be said that class size doesn't matter. Because the size of this year's table has allowed for genuine dialogue instead of sound bites and speeches, reflection instead of prefabricated interventions. We can and have seen each other, heard each other's diverse opinions, and built bridges of understanding across divides of geography. It takes work to build an inclusive community, and while we never ignore our diverse roles, these summits have become in many ways what we as teachers work to create for our students, learning environments that are relational and not transactional. I fully agree that the topic of digitalization and its many dimensions have had as fulsome a sounding as we had yesterday. I think we went much deeper than we've ever gone before. Although it shouldn't have taken a pandemic to drive the point home, we are in general agreement that teachers must be at the table in the design, implementation, and purchasing of any digital tools, and that pedagogy must drive those design choices around the use of those tools with the equally important elements of time and trust. Teachers the world over are innovating. Andrea said, millions innovating and developing their own technological approaches and tools, and we must help create linkages to connect, develop, and scale in meaningful ways, open source and open-mindedly. We must all, as some countries are already doing, find the resources that tap into teachers' creativity so that more and more can benefit from their efforts. Companies interested in protecting their secrets and intellectual property cannot be the drivers of a redesign aimed at sharing and collaboration. We must take seriously the need to address the ethical and regulatory aspects of AI. As a friend of mine sitting around this table has aptly titled her recent book, Teachers Need Support, Not Surveillance. The Danish minister said that the decisions related to using online tech should be up to the teacher and nobody else. I saw all my colleagues around the table's eyes go up. Was that the union leader or was that the minister? And that governments have an obligation to ensure that licenses can be shifted from individual monopolies to accessible libraries. What a novel idea. And then we heard from Gordon and others, the union counterparts, asking for additional teacher education and capacity building so that teachers can be confident in those choices and their application. Andrea said that currently the use of digital tools right now correlates negatively with learning outcomes, and that when teachers are not at the heart of design, they cannot help with the implementation. We also heard the need to differentiate between digitalization, very important, and remote learning, and take seriously the workplace issues of teachers who are always connected, increasingly stressed, and quite frankly, burning out. The afternoon session yesterday demonstrated the need for an intersectoral approach to inclusion and the fact that communities are not created and sustained by edict or competition against an other, but by shared collective values. We're reminded that a school is a place of belonging and that they are irreplaceable beating hearts of communities. That is also why they and teachers' autonomy are often targeted by demagogues and autocrats who have a vested interest in dividing communities, targeting immigrants, LGBTI kids, and others who defend the rights of all students and their access to learn potentially uncomfortable histories and become optimistic about their own agency in changing the future. I believe very strongly that what is going to be required is a pedagogy of solidarity. I think that's what's required at this moment as we navigate and respond to a confluence of crises. My dear friend Susan reminded us that climate change and environmental degradation are not the stuff of hypothetical futures, but rather impacting lives now. She reminded us in very personal terms of our choice to either teach for fear or teach for hope. And we also know that in many places, economic incentives do not align with our climate aspirations. A just transition, a green transition, a green economy and society requires intentional collaboration and dialogue, and education systems must be resourced and supported to that end. Our challenge to design and support systems with the requisite conditions to teach and learn multiple co-related literacies is fundamental for reading and comprehending the world. We always say read the word, read the world, at this very difficult moment. While there is, as I'm aware, no vaccination against ignorance, propaganda, and disinformation, we do have an opportunity to build up our antibodies through inclusive, sustainable education and a pedagogy of solidarity. Just not too long ago, the Deputy Minister and Katarina addressed us. While Russia has damaged and destroyed over 1,600 schools, we heard about hundreds of students who've been killed. 10 million people fled their homes, many to neighboring communities of countries sitting around this table. We talked about that. We talked about there's a need for a different frame of reference to think about our roles. Is it possible to reconcile the immediate need to integrate and support Ukrainian refugees in our schools with a long-term commitment to their return to a rebuilt, free, and democratic Ukraine? I think the answer is yes. I think the answer has to be yes. So we can, as Andrea said, and should bring our collective resources and knowledge together to ensure the Ukrainian teachers and students know that they're not alone and not left behind. John said, and Susan, we have it in our background paper, pessimism turns to hope when children feel they have the power to act. I think children and teachers feel that they have the power to act. We have the power to empower them to do that. I want to thank you all very much for being here, and I want to wish you all very safe travels home, and look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you very much.
David, thank you. Truly superb, amazing EI team. And as you pointed out, there was something very special about the size and the space that doesn't go unnoticed to educators. So, colleagues, we've got one last responsibility, and that is Andreas's extra mile. What a delightful way of expressing it, Andreas, because two jurisdictions are about to indicate that they are prepared to take the extra mile. And at this moment, Cindy, I want to pass to you in the US because it'll now become pretty clear that, that you might be prepared to do just that in 2023.
Wait, why are you passing it to me? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Only kidding. We are very happy to announce, on behalf of Secretary Cardona, Department of Education, all my colleagues here, that we are happy to be hosting next year's summit with the United States. Can't wait to see you all there.
Thank you. It's remarkable and wonderful because you might remember online that Secretary Cardona said, look, it can't be face-to-face, but it would be wonderful if we could convene in that way. So that undertaking is superbly generous after an already significant contribution in 21. So we want to acknowledge that and indicate our appreciation. And so that we have a sense of anticipation into 2024, let me look to my dear colleagues in Singapore. Minister, would you be prepared to commit?
Yes, definitely. But first, I'd like to use the opportunity to thank our host for 2022's International Summit. So thank you to Spain for hosting this year's International Summit on the teaching profession, which has enabled us to meet in person to celebrate our educators and also to use the opportunity to think through how we can further support their efforts. I echo what you have said earlier, that despite different national and political realities that we each individually face, I have found through our conversations and our discussions that there are many common trends and challenges that we all collectively face. So we'll each have to think through the different trade-offs that we'll have to make in our own jurisdictions. But I think it is quite clear that we are united in our desire to do better and to do more for our young and for our educators. So I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all our delegates here for our collective commitments to the teaching profession, and also thank you to ISTP for bringing us together to focus our energies and to focus our thoughts. On that note, Singapore looks forward to continuing on the momentum built from this year's summit and all the summits in the years prior, to continue to reimagine and redesign education for our young and for our educators, working in partnership with teachers, with parents, and the larger community. So we are extremely grateful and extremely happy for the opportunity to host the International Summit on the Teaching Profession in 2024, and we look forward to inviting everyone to the sunny shores of Singapore. Thank you.
Well, colleagues, we're drawing to a close, but I did want to just at least create a moment where, if others around the table might wish to make any final comment, then the floor is yours. I'll wait long enough to make sure it's an awkward silence and then see if anybody would like to contribute. Susan.
I didn't want to let the silence go for too long, but I just, in all of the thank yous that we've made today, I'd just like to add Education International's thank you to our member organisations here in Spain for their contribution to this outstanding summit. Thank you very much to both organisations. Thank you.
And I'm not looking for raised place cards. It's just a question of anybody wishing to come in.
Can we also say thank you to you, Tony? Thank you.
Thank you.
For the work that you did in moderating the summit this year. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Well, now that we've said that, I think we can move on to... Anybody else? Then let me just say this as we come to the conclusion, or the concluding moment. We will have a report. Nathan Barnett, the National Centre on Education and the Economy, will take responsibility for ensuring that we are able to gather all of this dialogue together as we did at the end of the 2021 dialogue, and we are hoping to have this to you in the month of June. So sooner rather than later, because we know that this is a valuable resource for communicating with others. So this brings us to the final moment. If we were in another place at another time and I had my dear friend Hekia Parata from New Zealand in the room, some of you might remember that we would finish in song. But I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just thinking we might just lift ourselves into a vertical position and actually thank each other.